Welcome to Troubadour Reactions. My name is Kirk, and I am going to be reacting to another overly sarcastic production. It's a classics summarized, the Iliad. Classics summarized, the Iliad is the work that I will be, or the production that I'll be reacting to. I have not seen this. I've seen others and I've reacted to others of overly sarcastic productions. I like them. I've said in other videos that there are things that I might do slightly differently, but what I really love about them is just they're summarizing massive things. And what I mean by I might do different things is I might focus on different particulars, not to say that they're wrong, but I probably wouldn't be as, as widely seen as they are. So I love them. They're doing great work. Any criticism I have is not a criticism of them as such, just, differences that we might approach. And, it's always interesting to see why they made those choices. Now, I run something called the Literary Canon Club. This is for elite individual human beings, men and women who want to become elite. I believe elite is a good thing, to elite athletes, to become better, to improve yourself. And we do this by reading the great works of literature from Homer to Goethe. And the first book we start off with is, of course, the Iliad. Now, the recommendation of a translation that I give actually comes from Dr. Leonard Peikoff, Ayn Rand's intellectual heir and legal heir. And he recommends, and I've read several Iliad translations, and this is my favorite as well, a prose translation by E.V. Ryu, R-I-E-U. R-I-E-U, E.V. Ryu. I don't know what they're going to say about translations, if they're going to say anything in this. We shall see. Okay, so that was a long intro to setting this up. There we go. Reaction. Now, let us see what... I think this is one of their earlier videos. Because I scrolled all the way down on their page to kind of find this. So I wonder... I bet they got a lot better later. Who knows? But Overly Sarcastic Productions deserves our praise and our views because they're doing, I'm an atheist, but I'll say God's work. They're doing godly work. All right, here we go. And wow.
The Iliad is one monster of a book. It's more than 600 pages long, and the crazy part was it used to be passed down through oral tradition, meaning it was someone's job to memorize the damn thing and regurgitate it into the willing ears of whoever was listening. On top of that, if I had to guess how many named characters were in it, I'd put the number somewhere between 200 and too many. Luckily for us, though, there's only a few characters we actually need to care about. On the Trojan side, those are Hector, Paris, and Helen. And on the Greek side, we've got Achilles, Patroclus, Odysseus, Agamemnon, boo, Menelaus, Diomedes, Ajax the Greater, and Ajax the Lesser, along with a few others. Now, to be fair, what she says about Agamemnon, there is a great work of theater by Aeschylus named the Agamemnon, where there's, I think, a little bit of pathos that you get, a little bit of sympathy for Agamemnon when you understand all of his background. So we'll see what she says. When I, run this club, I tell people the importance of spoiling the work to know what's going on ahead of time. Because, when Homer was telling this story to people in 8th century BC, he was expecting you to know everything, or not expecting. He knew that you knew all the story, all the history, all the lineages. You knew who Agamemnon's great-great-grandfather was. This was, it was Tantalus. So anyway, let's go into this. The day, Troy was called Ilias, which is why the book is called the Iliad. Translated literally, it'd be called Troy Story.
You got a friend.
Yeah.
Wait, what did she say? It may have come to your attention. It's been replaced with more animisc. So this is... So
Book 1. So
I don't know why everyone thinks Troy is awful. I don't know. I'd really like to hear an analysis of Troy. I mean, I don't think it's the greatest epic of all time or anything, but it's just like, it's a movie and it's trying to do its own thing. I don't know. I'm very curious why people hate it so much. I like it because it is it gives you some of the understanding of what's going on in the Iliad, or at least in the Trojan War cycle, I should say, not the Iliad, like take it very separately. But maybe she'll explain why she doesn't like Troy, the movie, the one with Brad Pitt.
Story begins 9 years into the Trojan War, when Agamemnon makes the dumbest decision of his life and pisses off Achilles, the most powerful warrior in his entire army. Basically, Agamemnon had taken this girl Chryseis prisoner, and her father, a priest of Apollo, came to try and get her back. He offered Agamemnon untold riches or whatever, which Agamemnon turned down on the principle of being an asshole. So predictably enough, this powerful and desperate...
Yeah, so this is what sometimes this, like the overly sarcastic thing bothers me. It's not just that Agamemnon's an asshole. That is a misreading, and you're missing the point of time and kleos, very important Greek terms, honor and glory. So it's an oversimplification in a negative way. This is one of the disagreements I might have, to say that he's just being an asshole. That's not it, because now you're going to misinterpret the entirety of the purpose of the Iliad.
Priest of Apollo prayed to the god in question, who gladly started raining down plagues upon the Greek army. Agamemnon is somehow surprised that pissing off the super powerful deity could go so badly for him, but still refuses to return the girl until Achilles starts verbally slapping him around, to the point that Athena has to physically come down and stop him from straight up murdering his commanding officer. By the way, you may have noticed that there seem to be an awful lot of gods in this story. No, you ain't seen nothing yet. So Agamemnon finally agrees to return the girl to her father, but there's one condition. Achilles will, in exchange, have to give Agamemnon his chosen lady toy, a gorgeous lass named Briseis. Achilles, though thoroughly bummed, does the smart thing and gives her up. Then he does the not smart thing and refuses to fight. He curls up into a sulky blanket burrito in his tent and refuses to come out for anything. Now, Achilles is by far the most powerful Greek warrior among them, later myths even painting him as invincible, so this is a pretty hefty loss for the Greek forces. Achilles then proceeds to make things even worse for them by praying to his mom, a minor goddess named Thetis, to get Zeus to help the Trojans. That's right, he's so pissed at Agamemnon that he's willing to make them lose the war out of spite. Of course, since I also hate Agamemnon, this doesn't really bother me all that much, but still, not cool, bro. Book 2. So, Zeus, as we all know, likes nothing better than screwing with mortals, so he's all for this plan. He sends a dream to Agamemnon urging him to attack Troy full force and promising him victory. So Agamemnon's like, great idea! Nothing bad has ever come from me listening to the gods! And then Hector hears a similar message from Zeus and immediately marshals his forces to attack. Book 3 is a list. It's just a list. The person rattling off the list is Helen, who punctuates her description of the Greeks with a lot of self-loathing commentary. But wait, this book actually has some action. Shock, I know. Menelaus, Helen's real husband, challenges Paris, Helen's current husband, to a duel. Paris is all for this plan, but there's just one problem. Paris is a total wimp. Menelaus kicks his ass, but before he can kill him and solve the war for good, Aphrodite decides to intervene and whisk Paris off the battlefield and off to Helen's chambers. Helen's like, God damn it, Aphrodite, what do you want? And Aphrodite's like, now kiss! Side note. That interaction pretty much summarizes the entire dynamic between Paris, Helen, and Aphrodite. The story's a little more complicated than this, but basically, Aphrodite promised Paris the hand of the most beautiful woman in the world in exchange for a golden apple. Specifically, the golden apple of discord crafted by Ares, goddess of discord, who was pissed after not getting invited to a wedding. The other two contenders for the golden apple were Athena and Hera, who you'd think would have better things to do. He accepted, and Aphrodite held up her end of the bargain by kidnapping Helen from a comfortable...
I get what she's doing. I mean, even if all that's oversimplified, but you got to. It's oversimplified productions. I get it. I'm not that dense. I get it. But yeah. So that's the basic gist. Is you have these three goddesses. They're vying for this golden apple, but the golden apple says to the fairest or to the most beautiful of the goddesses, and they vie over who's the most beautiful, and they want to know who's the fairest or the best of the three goddesses. And that's where they fight. And Zeus actually says, I ain't gonna deal with this. I'm gonna give this to this shepherd guy over here who's actually a prince of Troy. And then he makes the decision. Each of the goddesses promise him something in return. Helen is promised from Aphrodite if he chooses her, and he chooses Aphrodite.
Life as Menelaus' wife and delivering her to Paris, although some versions involve Paris kidnapping her himself. So basically, at this point, Aphrodite has done nothing but mess up Helen's life, and the whole war is also kind of her fault, so it's no surprise that nobody in the story really likes her that much. Anyway, back to the actual plot. So back on the battlefield, Menelaus is an unholy degree of pissed, riding in circles, frothing at the mouth, yelling, "Come back here and die like a man!" You know the works. So then in Book 4, the gods discuss what to do and decide that abject chaos is way more fun than peaceful resolution. So Athena pops down into the Trojan ranks and double dog dares an archer to shoot at Menelaus. hilarious. The arrow whiffs, the temporary truce between the two armies immediately dissolves, and they all go back to wailing on each other. So book 5 is all about this lesser-known but incredibly badass Greek hero, Diomedes. So Diomedes is tearing through the Trojan army, like you do, when Athena notices that two gods she particularly dislikes, Aphrodite and Ares, happen to be interfering with the battle. So she pops down to Diomedes like, "Hey, so I've given you magic eyeballs. Now you can tell who's secretly a god and who's not. And let me be clear about this. Do not fight the gods. You will lose. Unless it's Aphrodite, then fight all you want. She's somewhere between marshmallow fluff and a baby chick in terms of battle prowess." So Diomedes acknowledges and continues to tear his way through the army when suddenly he sees Aphrodite doing her thing and lifting one of her injured dudes off the battlefield. Diomedes is like, "None of that," and chucks a spear through her wrist. So she's like, "Ow!" and drops the dude in question and zips back to Olympus, whining incessantly. Meanwhile, back at the front, Apollo grabs the dude Aphrodite was trying to save. His name is Aeneas, by the way. He's got his own book or something, I don't know. And Diomedes immediately tries to
So I don't know if she's being sarcastic there by saying I don't know. The book is the Aeneid. Aeneas is a very important character in literary history, and in history of Greco-Roman, but overly sarcastic. So I get it, and it's cool. I appreciate this video a lot.
stab him. Apollo's like, "Step off, kid. Some of us gods are a little sturdier than Aphrodite." And Diomedes does the smart thing and backs off. And then Ares shows up. Yay! So Athena's like, "Diomedes, why aren't you hitting him?" And he's like, "Because you told me not to?" And she's like, "Forget what I said, kid. You're the best around!" And then Diomedes stabs Ares in the gut, which video game logic tells me must make him the new god of war. So Ares runs home to Zeus crying, and Zeus is like, "Man up, you gigantic disappointment." So now Ares hurts on the outside and the inside. Book 6 is pretty boring. Someone tells Hector to tell the women of Troy to pray to Athena to stop Diomedes from single-handedly killing every single one of them. So he does, and they do, but she doesn't, and he continues to be awesome. Book 7 is a little more interesting. Apollo's like, "Hey Athena, you know what would be cool? If your chosen hero didn't end the war in one day. That'd be cool, right?" And Athena's like, "You make an excellent point. Let's stop the war and make Hector fight someone." So they pause the war again. I really don't think it should be that easy. And the various Greek heroes we actually care about hold an impromptu lottery to see who gets to fight Hector. Great Ajax, not to be confused with lesser Ajax, wins the lottery, and he and Hector duke it out until nightfall, at which point they both call it a day and go home. So book 8 is called The Tide of Battle Turns, and that's basically what happens. The Greeks start losing and the Trojans start winning. Now it's time for book 9. So Agamemnon's like, "Damn it! It's almost like we're missing our strongest fighter and the gods are working against us. What do you know?" So Agamemnon's like, "I vote we run away. Who wants to run away?" And Diomedes is like, "You've got to be kidding me. You called us cowards and now you want us to cut and run? God, this guy is so cool." So Agamemnon's like, no. What I meant to say was, who wants to go talk to Achilles and get him to fight with us again? So he sends Ajax and Odysseus to talk to Achilles, who's still burritoed up in his tent with Patroclus. So Ajax and Odysseus are like, "Yo, Agamemnon's willing to give you your girlfriend back, along with a ridiculous amount of wealth and a few kingdoms if you get out there and help us fight." And Achilles is like, "Nope, he's a jerk. In fact, I sail home tomorrow unless something really tragic and unnecessary happens to make me stay and fight. Hey, if it isn't my best buddy Patroclus. I don't know what I'd do if this guy died." That, folks, is what we in the writing biz call foreshadowing. Book 10 is based
So, such a oversimplification. No, that was a good job. That was an oversimplification. They did their job. They did what she was going to say. That's great. My issue with it is it's so important to not gloss over too much the purpose and argumentation that Achilles makes in book 9, which is one of the most famous books, perhaps, or chapters. We call them books because they were scrolls and they were separated. But one of the most important chapters or books in the history of literature. I mean, these arguments that Achilles gives, and he basically decides that he's going to abscond from the ethos, the morals, the whole perspective of his culture. He dawns off. He basically shrugs. This could be called Achilles shrugs. And it's a really important moment because it's why he shrugs that's important. And he says a line that Muhammad Ali quotes unknowingly, probably thousands of years later. He says, Viet Cong, ain't no Viet Cong ever called me the N-word, right? And Achilles says, no Trojan ever did anything to me. Why am I here for this thing? And, it brings up a whole question of why they're fighting. What is this warrior culture that they're all about? This is, an important element of, of the Iliad. Anyway, I understand what she was saying. You can't get into all that. So again, still very pro this video. Good work on the video. You did a good job.
Basically a Metal Gear Solid mission. Not even kidding. So it's night, and Agamemnon and Menelaus gather some main characters and are like, okay, do we have some volunteers to infiltrate the Trojan camp and find out their plans? And Diomedes is like, well, I did just finish carving a bloody canyon through the Trojan forces, so sure, I'm game. And Odysseus is like, you'll want me as well. I have actual cognitive faculties, quite rare among this army. So Odysseus, the only sneaky guy in the entire Greek army, gets partnered up with my man Diomedes for a stealth mission. That's right, this epic officially has everything now. But at the same time, in the Trojan camp, Hector has the same idea and sends a much less important character to scout the Greek ships. Predictably enough, the two stealth teams encounter each other, and Diomedes and Odysseus capture and interrogate the poor guy. He's like, I'll tell you everything! And Odysseus is like, ballin'. And then they decapitate him. Using the information Odysseus extracted from him, they sneak into the Trojan camp and steal an extremely fancy chariot and some armor from a king.
Excellent, Snake.
Now it's time for Book 11. The sun rises and it's back to war we go. So today is Agamemnon's time to shine, and while he's busy kicking ass and taking names, some minor hero that Achilles is fond of gets wounded. So Achilles is like, hey Patroclus, can you go out there and ask Nestor who that was? I need to make sure before I start feeling sad. So Patroclus does, and Nestor's like, hey, so it sure is nice of Achilles to feel bad when his friends start getting hurt. But, it'd be even better if, he helped out so that didn't happen. So yeah, could you maybe have a talk with him about that? And Patroclus is like, I only promise to try. Book 12, the war continues. Zeus smacks the Greeks with a thunderstorm, allowing the Trojans to start beating them. Man, divine intervention is such a hack. So this pushes the Greeks all the way back to the ships. And in Book 13, Poseidon gets a little sick of Zeus hogging the show, so he drops by to give the Greeks a little help by buffing the two Ajaxes with some stat boosts. So then the Greeks start winning. In Book 14, Hera uses her feminine wiles to distract Zeus from his efforts to buff the Trojans and depower the Greeks, so the Greek army continues to win. In Book 15, Zeus wakes up after being thoroughly wiled by Hera and gets mega pissed to see that his favored side is now losing.
Well, so this must be a PG version because Hera, unless I missed something that she said, Hera, seduces him and sleeps with him very explicitly in a sense. They don't describe the sex scene, but that's a big part of it.
Ares is like, hey, I think one of my kids down there just died. This looks like a lovely excuse for war. And Athena dope slaps the armor off him like, idiot, Zeus is already mad enough. If you remind him of how much of a failure you are, he'll get even madder. And Ares is like, oh. So the tide of battle turns again, and the Trojans start winning. At this point, it's really become formulaic. By the time Book 16 rolls around, Patroclus has gotten back to Achilles like, hey, dude, could I maybe persuade you to go out and fight? Our guys are kind of getting destroyed. Even Agamemnon is injured. And Achilles is like, ha, nice. And Patroclus is like, seriously, Achilles, they're dying out there. They need our help. And Achilles is like, well, I really can't have them burn our ships. Tell you what, you go out in my armor and lead my army. The Trojans will never know the difference between us. And Patroclus is like, anything for you, man. And Achilles is like,
yeah, so I've never understood where, I don't know where the view that Patroclus and Achilles are homosexual, but that seems to be going on it seems to be a big view today, and I think in history it was as well, literarily. I don't think it's in the Iliad much or at all. I think they were friends and they loved each other as friends and compatriots. It's like Band of Brothers. It's like that's his brother. If you've ever seen that show, Band of Brothers, the kind of relationships that men have in wartime. And I think that's what's being portrayed, not a kind of sexual love. Now, in ancient times, the emotion, because they didn't have the mind-body dichotomy. And in fact, they had complete mind-body integration. So in their view, if there was that kind of, friendship, love, that could cross over into sexual love. So that, it's not unheard of. But this seems to be something that everybody has to stress over the last 20, 30 years. Like, this is a big deal. And there's even a book written that I read, and I cannot remember the name of it, but it's about Achilles and this whole love affair. Anyway, so far, so interesting. There's still, the way they oversimplify is a little bit challenging because, again, the idea that Achilles is merely a mopey little child isn't correct. There's a lot more going on for his reasoning for giving up the warrior ethos in this whole story, which, he's choosing to live a normal life rather than this warrior life. And so he's not going to be remembered. He's not going to have glory or honor, which is all this culture has. So he's giving up his entire culture to do this. Anyway. Also, I've read it several times, but I am pretty sure Nestor plants into Patroclus's mind that they should wear the armor, that he should put on the armor. And then he tells that to Achilles as though it's his idea. And it's like this kind of like, telephone game of I tell you, you tell this person, and then it happens. But I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right.
Like, just one thing. Promise me you'll come back alive.
See, I don't know.
And Patroclus is like, of course I will, bro. And not 5 minutes later, Hector kills him. Book 17 is pretty uneventful. The Greeks see Patroclus go down and collectively Hulk out to defend his body, and Hector takes Achilles' armor and wears it around. Book 18, the battle continues, although now it's centered around defending Patroclus' corpse. Meanwhile, Achilles is still burritoed up in his tent, having no idea that his bestie is currently dead. That is, until a messenger arrives bearing those very tidings, causing Achilles to similarly Hulk out. He's like, that's it, time to single-handedly kick Troy's ass! And his mom Thetis is like, no, Achilles, you're fated to die if you fight! And he's like, I couldn't save my hetero life partner, Mom, this life isn't worth living anymore! And then the rest of the chapter is devoted to Hephaestus making Achilles new duds. In book 19, Achilles puts on his new duds. Yeah, this epic kind of drags on in places. In book 20, Achilles carves a bloody murder canyon through the Trojan forces despite various gods' best attempts to stop him. In book 21, Achilles fills a river with so many corpses that the river itself gets pissed and starts trying to drown him, so he beats it up until it stops bothering him. Then he gets distracted and starts chasing Apollo around the city because all the best heroes have ADD. Just ask any side-questing Skyrim player. In book 22, Achilles finally remembers what he's there for, and after an extremely slapstick routine where he chases Hector around Troy several times, he finally kills him. Yay! Then he ties Hector's body to his chariot.
Well, so the one thing they're skipping, she skipped completely all the stuff going on with Hector and Troy. And many people who read the Iliad think that the Greeks are going to be the most sympathetic, most realized characters. But Hector usually comes out being the most realized character, the most fully human. He sometimes worries about dying. He sometimes thinks he's going to make it. He feels more real in the sense of doubt that he has that Achilles doesn't have. That's one of the things that makes Achilles such a unique person or character in literature, is that he knows. And think about this. I mean, this is a big deal. And Homer stresses this. Achilles knows if he fights, he will win and he will die. How many people in war know that? How many soldiers, think about World War I or World War II, and you go into war and you know you're going to win the war at the beginning of the war. You're an American soldier about to storm the beaches of Normandy. Do you know you're going to win and you know you're going to live? No, he doesn't. And by live, I mean Achilles knows he's going to die after he's won. He knows that that's his fate. And then he knows that, and he has the choice to go home, and he can live if he goes home, right? And he knows he will live. I mean, even a soldier has to recognize that they won't, if they go home, they may not survive, right? That's also a possibility, is that they die in a couple of years, right? This kind of level of doubt about your life, Achilles does not have. He knows because he's been fated. There's a prophecy.
And rides it around Troy 3 times to parade the body off to Hector's father, the king. Yay? And the rest of the book is, actually pretty boring. The Greeks hold Patroclus' funeral, during which they basically just play a lot of party games. And then at some point after the Iliad cuts off, but before they officially sack Troy, Achilles...
So it's boring to her. It's not boring if you're interested in learning about Greek culture at this time and what's going on with, again, the ethos of this warrior culture, which is, again, the purpose of exploring the Iliad, if you are going to read it. If you're reading it for pure entertainment, you're making a mistake. If you're reading it to tune out and, like you do with a TV show, then you should just not read it.
Achilles gets shot in the heel by Paris and dies. Yay!
Wait, what did she say at the end?
Heel by Paris. And then at some point after the Iliad cuts off, but before they officially sack Troy, Achilles gets shot in the heel by Paris and dies. Yay!
Okay. That took too long. That was fine. Plus side. Well, she did a good job. I don't want, I know I'm criticizing. I could not do what she's doing. this as all Agamemnon's fault. Not much of a stretch. You want to know the one good thing that came out of Troy? This song. It's Achilles Brad Pitt's theme, and it's pretty great. Just don't watch that movie. Okay, so that I agree with. Don't watch the movie and expect to get an education. I don't know why you would. Movies just don't do that very well in general. Yeah, they kill off Menelaus in the first 15 minutes. Do you also know that the Trojan War is a myth? Yeah, so that's why they call it Troy and not the Iliad. So this is my problem with people who criticize movies in comparison to books, is that they're expecting to see the book portrayed, but a movie is a different medium, and that's completely different. So Troy on its own is a moderately good, epic movie. Is it comparison to the Iliad? No, it's not a comparison to the Iliad. But, great work. I like what you do, Miss Overly Sarcastic, whoever you are. I did like that. It was fun. It was engaging, even though I didn't agree with everything. And again, I would have chosen different particulars. But then again, I wouldn't be able to do what she did with all those drawings and all the, summarizing it in 15 minutes. I mean, look, I'm already at 30 minutes and she's only like 14 or something like that. So she did a phenomenal job. How to summarize stuff like that. Like I can summarize the story, but the way she does it is more entertaining and enjoyable. I wish there would be more of a stress of the, helping you understand the theme of the story and why it's worthwhile to read. Because if you're reading it just for this entertaining story, then you're missing out. One of the values of reading this great work of ancient literature is for you to travel on the realms of gold. That's a term from John Keats that I like. And that's to go to this world, to actually explore it, look around. But, oh, look, there's Achilles. There's, Patroclus and Diomedes. And to see their shields and to explore the style and all the things that she said is boring are actually what you should be stopping and calming down and reading slowly and walking around with. So that's my issue with it, but still I like it. Nevertheless, despite my goofy issues. Till next time.